Hello and welcome to Defense Diaries. I'm your host, Bob Mata, and it's good to see you guys again. Welcome back, welcome back, welcome back. I'm excited about tonight's show. I've got two people who I really, really respect the work that they do and just the human beings that they are. So first, I'm going to bring Bill on because I'm so excited that Bill has his tech working this week, which is amazing. And he's in his luxurious estate in a hidden location somewhere in Europe. What's up, Bill? How are you, my friend?
I'm good. Good to see you.
Yeah, you too. You too. It's nice to be able to see you. We struggle bust through last weekend or last Tuesday.
Horrific. It's all mine. It's all on me, but it's all been fixed. But
you look amazing. You sound amazing. So that
as you can see, I know it's only it's 5:02 in the morning here, but you can see through the door that the sun is up pretty bright already.
Yeah, it's you're such a champion, man. Like I appreciate you getting up. Like if you guys haven't been here for many of the lives, or if you're going to be replay crewing this, like I was running these like a little earlier at like 7. So poor Bill was up at like 3 a.m, sometimes in his robe, but he'd always power through. The man's a miracle for being 80 years young. He's He's everything that I hope to be when I'm that advanced age. And I'm no spring chicken myself, but you're what I aspire to be, Bill. All right. So I'm really excited about our guest tonight. Bill and Margaret Byrne have been working closely together for years, just trying to unravel the nightmare that is Reynaldo Guevera. I'm going to give you guys a little bit of a bio about Margaret, and I'm going to bring her on because I don't want to waste a bunch of time with me yapping. So Margaret is an award-winning, and I'm pulling this straight from her IMDb bio. All right, so you guys know we're dealing with the truth over here. So she's an award-winning filmmaker. She's directed, produced, and shot Any Given Day, and that's America Reframed in 2022, a longitudinal documentary following 4 Chicagoans navigating the complexities of living with mental illness. She directed and produced Raising Birdie, and that was POV 2017. And that's an intimate chronicle of 3 rural North Carolina teens whose chance for success in an alternative school is threatened when it closes down. She's in production on a documentary exposing, which we're going to be talking about tonight, the largest police frame-up scandal in U.S. history. She has worked as a cinematographer on over a dozen films, including Big Payback in 2022, Surge in 2020, Waging Change 2019, Generation Wealth in 2018, and All the Queen's Horses in 2017, and then finally American Promise in 2014. She also teaches documentary cinematography at Columbia College in Chicago, and is the founder of Betty Films, a film collective based in Chicago, Illinois. So super impressive bio. Let's bring her on. Hey, what's up, Margaret?
Hi, thanks for having me.
Thanks for being here. We appreciate it. I know it's a little late, so I'm always trying to accommodate Bill, because of that time difference that we have.
His secret location.
Yeah, it is secret location. So, Margaret, why don't you first? how did you get into filmmaking? Like, what was that, something that you wanted to do since you were young, or like, how did you get into it?
I guess since I was a kid, I always loved the camera. It was like my way of speaking in the world. So what started with pictures then moved into filmmaking, and it's what I've always done. I did work in the music business for about 10 years, but still doing film work, live performances, things like that. So yeah, I've always done mostly documentary work.
Yeah, and like I love documentaries. It's like definitely my favorite form of films. I've like and I'm in the true crime world. I've been a criminal defense attorney for 20 plus years, so like it was kind of a natural move for me when I kind of moved into this creator space. And but documentaries have always held like a really special place in my heart. And in terms of like kind of what do you decide you want to make, how do you come to a subject matter? Like, how do you land on what you decide that you want to kind of dig into? Like, what's that process for you?
I mean, I'll say every film I've made has taken a number of years to make, because I film over a period of time. So you're seeing a story unfold and change happening over years. And so I think it has to be something you really care about. And stories have come to me in different ways. But it has to be something I really care about and really connect with the people, because you spend so many years doing this. So I started this project and met Bill in 2018, and I've been working on it ever since. So it's going on 7 years.
Wow.
And like if you have kids, it's like you see your child grow up. And
Yeah.
Still working on the same project.
Yeah. Yeah, that's so true though. And it's like one of the, when I first started watching documentaries, like when I was like younger, I think the first one that really like resonated with me like so heavily was like Hoop Dreams, like long time ago. And it just blew me away. And like for me, it's always been, which I've seen, I wanted to ask you about, because I've seen like a trend moving away from the documentary filmmaker where they're just behind the camera, and no matter what's going on in terms of the people that they're following or the subject matter, that like the documentary filmmaker can't get involved. Like the thing that always stuck with me with like Hoop Dreams is, you have the filmmaker there and like they can't pay their electric bill, and it's like, as the filmmaker, you're like, oh man, I probably like you probably feel like I want to pay that, like I want to help them pay the electric bill, but it's like you're really just supposed to be a fly on the wall, right? I mean, like, and I see this trend happening with documentaries now. There's so many filmmakers out there, all different varieties and all different quality levels. You get some that are just, in my estimation, should never be released, but because of the nature of streaming and just the desire and hunger for content, I think it's kind of lowered the bar. But like in terms of your ability to just kind of be able to stand on the sidelines, like how hard is that? Because you obviously must form like a bond with these people. You know what I mean? Like how hard is that?
I mean, I think the ethics behind that sort of thing, and Hoop Dreams is a Cartemquin film. It's made here in Chicago. It's a great film. That company was a co-producer on my first film, Raising Bertie. And I think the ethics of sort of how you deal with the participants in your films it's different than journalism, especially when, Hoop Dreams, they shot over the course of 4 years. When you're filming with participants like we have in Corruption Capital with Bill, for example, I filmed him for years, and that shifts what the relationship is. And I think by Steve James and Hoop Dreams making you aware of what was happening, he's still telling he's giving you an honest portrayal of what's really going on. Yeah. And to me, that is great documentary filmmaking. And if anything, I think the shift has gone to more of a commercial framing of a lot of these stories. And it's a lot different when you have a crew of 6 to 8 people coming in with lighting and making everything perfect, and that, versus having an independent filmmaker who's maybe just 1 or 2 people. It's always the same people. They're spending time with your family. You're getting more intimate moments. You're able to capture things, I think, that sometimes you miss when you have a big crew. So there's independent documentary filmmaking is still alive and well, and there's a lot of people out there telling, I think, important stories.
Yeah,
It's a matter of how they get out there.
That's so true. Like I didn't really think of it in the sense of like independent versus commercial, like big budget. But I think that's gospel. I think that's exactly what the difference is. But like, and that's probably why I resonate, because I want like authenticity, and like you can just feel that with independent filmmakers because of exactly what you said. It's just there's that, you can sense the connection, especially over documentaries that the filmmaker has been filming for years, where you're seeing like life swings for the subjects of the film, and it's
And money
unbelievable.
can't pay for that. A company can't say, I have this great idea for a story, it'll be done in 6 years.
Right.
Because half those people won't even be at that job anymore. So those projects can't exist in the commercial space unless obviously they're bought by independent filmmakers who make that commitment and build those relationships. And it's just a different style of working. And I think the result, which hopefully people will see with Corruption Capital, the project that Bill is featured in, is that you really get to know people and you really get to go on the journey with them because the cameras are there.
Yeah, it's unbelievable, and it's such a beautiful like format for storytelling, which I kind of got into the creator thing with podcasting, and I'm long form podcasting, and I love to tell a story, and I'm a nitty gritty type of guy, which is I think probably why I enjoy the kind of films that you put forth. So in 2018, like how did you come about the Guevara story? And the thing that blows my mind about the Guevara story is that no one knows about it. It's like, it's unbelievable to me. Like when your film comes out, like people's minds are going to be blown. Like, it's just, you can't, even if I Google it, I mean, I find articles in the Trib, but it's all about, the exonerees getting out, and really, there's, the money being paid out for trying to recompense these people for the lives that they've lost, which is, no way to you can't undo time. It's like, there's no giving that back. You can't give back losing, watching your children grow up, or, being able to live your life on the outside. It's like, so in terms of like that side of it, like how did you run into Guevara? Like, how did you run into the story?
So it was through a neighborhood billboard that came up in my neighborhood, right down the street from where I live. And it said, "Help free me, I am innocent." And it was Bill's number at the bottom of the billboard. And it is a case of Matthew Echeverria, which is a case that Bill has worked on for a long period. He's actually still incarcerated, still waiting for his post-conviction petition to be filed. And this was back in 2018 when the billboard came up. It was up for some number of years until about a year ago. Yeah.
Wow. That's unbelievable. So you just gave Bill a call?
Yeah, I met, well, did I meet you through Denise? Did I meet Denise first? That's Matthew's mom.
Probably went through her first.
Yeah, because they would be out on the corner demonstrating, because it's where the billboard went up is where the murder that her son was convicted of happened, just blocks away from there. So they put up the billboard. I mean, Bill can speak to this to help them find information.
I told him I thought that would be a good idea because it was close to the area where the homicide had occurred, and I truly believed in Matthew's innocence, and I thought that was a good way to get it out there.
Wow. So
And these were Area 5 detectives that were involved in Matthew's case.
Right. No, it wasn't Guevara. It was others involved in that case, but it's terrible. I mean, I could spend many hours talking about that case. And this young man, he spent all this time, almost 25 years in prison for something he didn't do. He walked into the police station after his mother said, "Oh, the police were here. They wanted to talk to you about something. I don't know what it's about." And the kid said, "Okay, who do I see?" And he went down to Area 5, and he's never been free since.
Jeez. Ugh. So, like, when you reach out to Bill, I mean, and so that first case that Bill's talking about, I mean, that's not Guevara. Is it like just you guys start talking and Bill starts telling you about Guevara? Because I mean, in 2018, had anything really broke with Guevara? Like in terms of what he had been up to, or was it like kind of on the front end of that?
I would say there, Jacques Rivera had gone to court and been exonerated. Robert Almodovar was in court at that time. There were like a few cases that were coming through at that time. And so when I met Bill, I mean, the first time we met, we did an interview, and that's kind of how I started to get to know him. And then we went on to film for years. And I didn't know, like anytime you come into a project, I didn't really know what is this even going to be about, because Bill is a treasure trove of stories. And so, of course, he talked about Gacy, he talked about a lot of other things throughout his career. And then when I learned more about, what he witnessed with Guevara and what was happening and starting to unfold in court in Cook County, that's when I was like, okay, this is the story. And I think it was Bill who let me know about Esther Hernandez, who was a mother of two sons that were wrongfully convicted, the Hernandez brothers. And she was running a group called Innocent Demand Justice. And so that was probably like the third time I filmed for this project back in 2018, when I first met her and met everybody at Innocent Demand Justice, and where Bill speaks. There's a little scene in the clip that I gave you where you see Bill speaking, and it's kind of a big moment in a sense, because he finds somebody there that he'd been looking for years.
Wow. All right. And that's a perfect segue. I want to, Margaret, you sent me the clip, and it's like, I kind of want to play the whole thing. But it's 6 minutes. Are you guys cool with me playing the whole thing? And then we'll come back and talk.
I'm fine.
It's your show, Bob.
All right, cool. I'm doing it then. I'm doing it.
Thank you, Margaret.
Let me pull it up. All right. Okay, you guys, let's go.
I was a career Chicago homicide detective. I retired in 1994 because I saw what was going on. Things weren't being done correctly, and I thought that innocent people might be going to jail.
Former gang crimes detective Reynaldo Guevera has now cost the city $38 million.
Dozens of convictions have been thrown out. Cases linked to the now retired Guevara, accused of framing the innocent.
Thrown out convictions connected to the detective Guevara now total more than 300 years in jail.
I was 17 years old. For 22 and a half years, I suffered.
I missed my daughter's first step, her first words, her first everything.
There's other men in there who are wrongfully convicted by Reynaldo Guevera, and they need to be freed.
When I worked in Humboldt Park, there were always cases that had very little information or no witnesses, and suddenly you're being told, come on, we're going out with Guevera, we're going to pick up these guys. You don't even know where the information came from.
Back then, what happened with the cops is you get caught, you're like, hey, I could get you something else, something bigger. When Guevara came at me, what they were doing is they were going to set somebody up.
Everyone knew that if you got pulled in by Guevara for questioning, you might not end up coming home.
When I alerted my supervisors to occurrences that I had been witness to,
I was told, you let Guevara do whatever he's doing because he's clearing cases.
Guevara was not the only detective. He may not have even been the worst detective, but he was the most high profile of this crew of Area 5 detectives. There was a whole infrastructure, supervisors all the way up through the prosecutor's office and the judiciary that knew exactly what the fuck was going on.
This Mason that was framed by Reynaldo Guevara, who was essentially extorting money from Jose Masonette. 27 years in the Illinois Department of Corrections wrongfully. Nobody can give you back 27 years.
The Hernandez brothers case bothers me the most.
My name is Juan Hernandez. I wake up in a cage knowing I am innocent.
What do we want? Justice! What do we want today?
The first years, summer would come, I would not even go outside. I couldn't. I'm thinking of my boys being in a hot cell.
I'm now more engaged in Esther's son's case. All this time, they were sort of just running questions by me. But then they asked me to take a more in-depth look at it. And boy, I see things there that were never investigated or followed up on.
He had false witnesses, faulty lineups, but yet they're fighting to protect him.
He's got these two witnesses who are about 15 years old. And the guy's looking at the photos and he's not picking out anybody. And then out of the blue, Guevara goes, "That's him." And the kid immediately responds, yeah, that's him.
God gave me the strength to get up and fight for your kids, because if you don't, nobody else is going to do it.
You got more patience than I do, because you know what? You said you're not angry, and I'm angry.
We have a chance of bringing him home. When? I don't know.
It's calendars that I count.
My agreement, July 12th. See you then. Thank you.
Because to me, time is like, it stopped for me.
This court is adjourned until August 22, 2019.
23 years, I look at it like 23 months.
The matter continues to September 24th.
That's the only way that I can knock these calendars out. I don't let the time eat me up in here, because it can eat you up.
I testified for Juan Johnson's post-conviction. When they first came to me, I was like, I don't want anything to do with that. I'm on parole. I ain't going against Guevara and them. But a mutual friend came to talk to me. You know, I sat down and I thought about it, and I was like, you know what? My testimony was the key.
You were the detective who secured all of the identifications that were used to convict Juan and Rosendo Hernandez, correct?
Take the fifth.
Having a detective plead the fifth, I think it is one of the darkest days for our criminal justice system, when our law enforcement officers would choose to remain silent because of their own fear of their bad acts.
The code of silence in Chicago is stronger than any other police department I've ever sued. And I've sued NYPD, I've sued other departments.
There is no blue code of silence as far as I'm concerned. You see things sometimes as police officers that you wish you didn't see, and that maybe you just unsee somehow.
My oldest son's in the police department. I was told that he'll never go anywhere. They'll put a brick on him because of me. We don't talk anymore. It's a price you pay.
You ended up identifying someone as the shooter for the police.
Some Spanish officer, he convinced us all that it was him. The officer kept insisting that he admitted to it, so that's why I went along with it. It's not my fault, I just want my uncle back. Somebody has to pay.
This building is all about secrets, and secrets that everyone knows.
This report is a condemnation of the entire city of Chicago, state's attorney's office, police department, all the way up to the mayor.
I get tired of telling my son, this is it. He don't want to hear that anymore.
My whole life, I thought that my dad was guilty of this crime.
There's 57 victims of Detective Guevara alone. We have to push, we have to make noise. That's the only way we're going to bring our loved ones home.
I beg of you, let the truth be told.
Wow. That looks amazing. Like, I'm ready to watch the whole goddamn thing right now. So when is that? When are we going to be able to watch that, Margaret?
I am aiming for a 2026 festival release right now.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's amazing. So like, how do you go, like, is that the process? So you make the doc and then you'll go to like, what, like you're gonna go to like what like Cannes or like one of the film festivals, Toronto Film Festival, and then you hope to sell it to a buyer. Is that the way that works?
Yeah, I'll either be, either you make the sale before you get to a festival a lot of times, or it's at the festival itself. But yeah, we're hoping for a, probably a US world premiere, like Sundance, Tribeca, something like that in 2026. We have about a year of editing ahead of us, because it's about, it's over 800 hours of footage. This is such a small little piece of, of a sample of what it is. So
The hair on my arms was standing up. Like I had goosebumps like at least 3 times in that 6 minutes. It's so powerful. Are you going to do it as a straight up film, or are you going to do it as a series?
that's a great question, because I was pitching it for a good amount of time as a series. Just the state of the business right now, it just didn't get the traction that I was hoping it would get. Yeah, so now I've gone back to reshaping it as a feature. And you never know, like it might, at rough cut stage get interest from a buyer and they say, you know what, let's make this into 3 episodes. And then we have more time to work with.
It looks amazing. It looks amazing. And it's like what becomes so clear when you watch like that you're a filmmaker, but you're also an advocate. It's like you tell these stories. Like, and I haven't seen your doc about the mental illness, and that's something that is like coming from the criminal defense attorney side of it, is something that really, really resonates with me, because it's just been so massively and largely ignored by the state, by the prosecutors, by law enforcement in terms of the criminal justice system. And it's like, it's heartbreaking, and like for my wife and I, who are both criminal defense attorneys, have been doing it for a really, really long time. It crushes you, it's like you're in there trying to fight the fight from the inside. And it's just like the power of the state is so overwhelming that it crushes your spirit after a while, and it's like you try to keep fighting and fighting and fighting. So it's like anything that you're doing like this is such important work, because it's shining a light on things that just are not being put out to the public at large. Like when I first started talking about the Guevera, like no one's heard of him. Like no one's heard of this story. And I'm like, it blows my mind, like I had never heard of it until I started working with Bill, and Bill's like, oh, as you said, he's a treasure trove of stories. He's like, oh, he's like the stories I have about like Reynaldo Guevera are like unbelievable. He starts telling me about it, and I'm like, and Bill's just got so much information about so many different things, because we're doing the Gacy thing, and and that's something that is important to both of us, because we just know, once again, Chicago police did what they do, which in that case was not much. It was the opposite of Guevera. They weren't doing anything about just all these missing kids. And they had Gacy on so many occasions where they could have stopped him and saved lives. And, when I started making my podcast and I'm diving into that case, and my father was the guy's defense attorney, you know what I mean? So I had that weird connection, and it's a strange thing that, my father defended him, but I'm advocating along with Bill to try to find additional victims that Bill and I are absolutely convinced exist, so it's such a weird world we live in, such a strange life that we live.
Yeah.
All right. So in terms of like, why don't you guys tell, like, in terms of like the folks that you've come to know and I'm sure love, in terms of these victims of wrongful convictions, I mean, tell us a couple of stories that have like really moved you, because it's just like no one's heard of these guys. You know what I mean? And it's like, and the one thing that just strikes you when you're watching your sizzle reel or your trailer is that it's the moms. It's always the moms that are out there like fighting, like just fighting. And it's not just this, it's always the mothers that are out there just fighting for their kids. So just tell us some stories so I can quit talking.
Yeah, I think it's the mothers. I think it was the women that really led the charge in the activism that brought all this to light, that got them attorneys, which put them on a path to have some hope to get their cases overturned. One story I think of is Daniel Rodriguez, who served his whole sentence of 18 years, and his wife stayed with him the whole time, and they're still together. And I always say that's the greatest love story because it just seems like impossible odds. They had 2 kids, 2 daughters, and his case was his certificate of innocence he got in I think 2023. But his case was overturned, and originally he was working with Innocent Demand Justice. He had taken about a decade to even be able to start to talk about and face some, be around all of that again. But he just wanted to help because the clerk had lost his file. So they were saying there's nothing we can do to help you.
Yeah.
So some part of his file came up in another file, and he was able to get an attorney and get his case worked on. But yeah, it's like impossible odds.
It's impossible.
Situation.
It's from like a lawyer's perspective. I know that once one of our clients is in the system, like the odds of them, like my father always said, like the worst client you can ever have is the innocent person, because it's like the weight of the world is on your shoulders. And if that person gets convicted, the mountains that you have to move to get them out in order to prove, to exonerate them is like, it's an unbelievable task. And like with these folks, like Bill, like how did they start putting these cases to like what was like, so when you whistle blow on the first case, right? And your bosses, your superior officers like are giving you the stink eye, and they're, like, I guess what I'm asking is how do you get movement on that case? Where do you find the crack to where you can slip in to try to wedge it open, to try to open it up so that you can expose it? Like where does that come from?
Well, it certainly didn't happen in the years that I was trying to fight for it in the police department. It came after I retired that I was able to access information that I couldn't get through the department. All right. I mean, there's a big wall there, the code of silence. Okay. I knew Guevara. All right. Before I was in a tactical team at 13, he was in 14. Then he went to gangs, and I was in gangs for a while. And then when I became a detective, but I didn't know anything about his activity before I was a detective. Okay. But early on, when he started coming in from gang crimes and suddenly finding witnesses who were people, who we never knew, somebody would call him or he'd get a message in his sleep about who the killer was. And then he'd come in and get a confession and solve a case. And I and other detectives were going, holy cow, we've been working on this case for 2-3 months. We haven't covered anything like this. And yet this guy walks in and it's repeating this with other people, but what really happened, and it's before 2018, when I met Margaret, I had already been testifying in court, and it started with Matthew Echeverria. I was so in belief that this kid is innocent, okay, and he's still languishing in prison today. I took that case to Northwestern University, And because I had done some work with the university in Wisconsin on a homicide case. And I took it to them, met with them, and I said, this is a case you got to take. Well, they didn't take the case because of some conflict with somebody involved in that case. But through them, and when I sat down with Jane Rayleigh, who was the co-director of it, she asked me if I knew and if I had worked with Guevara. And I said, yeah, I know him. You know, I'm retired now many years, you know, and I left the department because of Guevara and what I saw going on with him and others. You know, I tried this. I had a case. We're jumping around here because I've got so many years here, Bob. I'm going to try to be more direct. There was a case where, so similar to his other cases, drive-by shooting on the street. Only witness in the car was a young girl, young teenager, relative of the kid that got shot. And all she could tell the police was they were in a large white car. The offenders were in a large white car. So that's not much to go on. You can find a lot of large white cars in Humboldt Park area. And then suddenly about 4 or 6 weeks later, Guevara and his partner walk in with 2 young boys, teenagers, and a third guy who was a little bit older. But Guevara walks into the office, stays there a while, comes out with Sergeant Mingy and approaches me at the desk with my partner and says, hey, Guevara's got 2 witnesses to that month or so old murder. Pick it up, see what he's got. So we sit down with Guevara and his partner, and he tells us, you know, we were just driving around. We saw these 2 young kids, and we thought, well, let's talk to them. So we stopped, got out of the car, talking, and of course, we're interested in homicides, and lo and behold, they tell us they saw this murder. They saw the murder. They were out in the street at 2, 3 o'clock in the morning when this murder happened, car-to-car shooting, and they were close enough that they wrote down the license plate number of the offender's vehicle. Okay? And then when they stop them, weeks later or a month later, they still have the piece of paper in their pocket with the license plate number. And I went to my boss right away and said, hey, man, this and the other things I've witnessed with Guevara, this doesn't look good. You know, 2 o'clock in the morning, 2 young kids being out in Humboldt Park in the summer, I can see that. But you tell me they got a piece of paper and a pen on them, and they never talk to the police until the day that Guevara comes up to them. But my bosses say, no, Bill, follow up on it. And so I followed up on that and found out that the guy that owned the car, he did have a gun arrest. That was all he had. He had 1 gun arrest. And, you know, but now that widens my suspicion. Okay, well, maybe there is something here. So I said, we got to get a photo of this kid because I know it's downtown and because he got arrested with a gun. So I send Guevara and his partner down to headquarters to get the photo, and I keep the kids with me. All right. So when Guevara comes back with the photos, he wants to go right in the room where the kids are. And I said, no, give me the photos. All right. So I took the photos, and then I set up a photo array, and I come and I gather the kids together, and we go into a big room with a big table. And I tell both of them, listen, you tell me you're a witness to this homicide. All right. I'm going to have you look at some photos, but just because I'm telling you to look at the photos, it doesn't mean I have the right person here. He may not be in a group of photos. So don't feel you have to pick somebody out. So I separate the 2 kids. I call the first kid up, and Guevara comes up with them. And I wasn't, you know, I didn't know what was going to come. But the kid's looking at the photos, and maybe a minute or so passes by, and he doesn't pick out anything. And I'm not rushing him because some people need more time. And suddenly Guevara puts his finger right on the photo and goes, that's him. And the kid goes, yeah, that's him. Maybe his hair's a little different, something, but yeah, that's him. I said, Guevara, the kid, get out. Mix up the photos, bring up the second kid. The second kid says, no, I don't recognize anybody. But now I go back and I talk to Guevara and the kid. My mistake, I shouldn't have sent them out together, you know, out of the room because they had time to talk. And the kid is saying, yeah, no, I'm positive. That's the kid. And it stunk, but I had to run it by the state's attorney All right. And the state's attorney, and I knew it before I even called, I knew he was going to say, you're going to need a physical lineup. Okay. So the next day, me, Sergeant Mingy, and my partner, John Boyle, we go out to the house. We see the large white car with the license plate number parked. Knock on the door. The kid comes down, and he's dressed in dress pants, a nice clean shirt. And we tell him we need to talk to him. He says, come on in. We go upstairs into his apartment. And he was sitting there before we arrived at the table. I can still visualize it. He had his textbooks on the table. He was going to night school in college downtown, and he had his checkbook out and he was paying his bills. You know, I said, oh, not my typical gangbanger that I'm looking for. And then he tells me, you know, I go to school and I'm assistant manager at a Walgreens on the north side of Chicago. Okay, all right. But listen, your car has been mentioned in an incident. You got to come with us into the station. We want to talk to you more. You know, and he says, yeah, no problem. You know, come, jumps in the car. We leave his car parked there. We go in, and again, we put him in a lineup, and of course the kid, I kept Guevara and his partner out. They couldn't see the lineup, but the first kid that identified the photo, because he identified the photo, picks him out. All right, the second kid again can't, but I tell the state's attorney I'm not happy the way this is going down. And the state's attorney says, you got one finger on it. That's okay, one finger. Yeah, we got one finger on this guy. And that was Guevara's. And he says, charge him. So what am I going to do? So that's how I got involved with really, really understanding there's something really wrong, not only with Guevara, but people above him. They allowed it to happen. And I believe I know why. Later we can get into that.
And ultimately, you had found out from Jane Braley at Northwestern about these Guevara cases because you were being sued. He was being sued in the Jacques Rivera case because he ran the lineup. And so his name was on the lawsuit, right?
Yeah, well, what happened was when I went in with Matt Echeverria, and then she asked me about Guevara, I sat down with her, and she showed me Jacques Rivera's case. All right, and I told her at first when I looked at it, I says, yeah, I see my name here on several reports, but, 25 years later, I don't even recall. But it appeared to me, and I was correct, the only thing about that case was the original detectives that had that case, the crime scene and all, they were not available. So when Guevara came in with the only young witness to that crime and said, this kid can identify the offender, my boss came out again and said, you got to run a lineup. So that's all I did. I put together a lineup with Jacques Rivera. And in that case. And that's all I did. So my name was on the reports, but I was so aware of Guevara already that I tried to separate myself from anything that he was involved in. But how cops get involved on somebody's lawsuits when they had nothing to do, no wrongdoing, is just because their name is somewhere in a report. There's a lot of good cops, good detectives that were attached to Guevara cases. Not that they did anything wrong, but merely they had some part in the paperwork, and that brought their name up. And you as a defense attorney know you're going to bring everybody in, and later you're going to probably drop them from the trial, but you're going to bring people in. So that's what was happening with that. But when I further on with that is after I put the kid in the lockup, the father of the boy comes in, and he's telling me, what's wrong? My son is here. I was told he was arrested. And I says, yes, sir. He was arrested because he's been identified. His car's been identified in a shooting that resulted in a murder. And the father, he almost fell to the floor. I remember grabbing onto him, steadying him, and then sitting him down. And he said, no, my son's a good kid. He wouldn't do that. He says, he goes to school. He works. That's it. He's not in the gang. I said, sir, your son does have a gun arrest. And that's why I sent Guevara down later for that. That's why I had sent Guevara down. But the father says, but did you ever talk to my son about that case? And I said, no. It's not a part of the homicide. I didn't talk about an older gun case. But I went down after the father said, what should I do? I said, he said, should I get an attorney? I says, no. I was thinking already, this case really stinks. I didn't like what Guevara did. He pointed out that picture. That kid didn't point him out. And I told the father, don't get an attorney. Just go to court, branch 66 tomorrow, and appear in court. And I went down with my partner to the lockup after the father left, and told the kid, tell me about that gun arrest. And he said, yeah, I was with friends. He says it was something really stupid. I was daytime and I was driving my car through an alley not far from my home. And I saw a revolver laying in the middle of the alley. So I got out, I picked it up. He says the gun was unloaded. And I was, so I couldn't leave it there. I put it in the trunk of my car. He says, I drove out of the alley. I went about half a block and suddenly there's a uniformed squad car behind me with the lights. They pull me over, search the trunk, find the gun, and I got arrested. So I said, okay, there's still now with that and the other things about the kid's life, I'm really questioning, can this kid be really the shooter in this case? So I told my partner, listen, this case stinks. We got to go to branch 66 tomorrow. Let's go pick up the two boys without Guevara and his partner. So we go out and grab Boyd that made the identification after Guevara put his finger on the paper. And I said, listen, this whole thing stinks. Do you really want to put an innocent kid in prison for something he didn't do? I said, I know something's wrong here. So you better tell me the truth now, because we're going to take you down to court and you could possibly put an innocent person in jail. Do you want to do that? And he said, no, never saw it. We never were there. He says, this detective, everybody knows him in the neighborhood. We're all afraid of this guy. And he told us, I want your cooperation. You're going to identify a guy. If you don't, you may become my next. Okay. Wow. So him and then the second kid just said the same thing. And they said, oh, we got paid. We got paid $20 each, putting the finger on this guy. But they didn't want to do it. So I took him down to branch 66, told the state's attorney of all that happened. The state's attorney said, okay, we're going to release the guy from court today. Because, once he gets past that first hearing, he's in the system. He could be there like these other guys and found guilty and gone to prison. All right. So took the kids home. My partner and I returned to Area 5 and we walk in the door and every boss in the building was waiting for us. So evidently they didn't know what we were going to do when we released the kid, but somebody from branch 66 had called our office and told them, so they were waiting. And the first words out of my boss's mouth when I walked up was, Dorsch, what the fuck are you doing? We're never going to solve this case. So I said, so what you want me to do is put an innocent kid in prison so you can clear a case for statistics. And then I was told, sit down and don't write any reports. And wow. Then after that story to Jane Rayleigh, she asked me, would you testify? And before I met Margaret, I was already testifying in about 10 cases already. Jacques Rivera's case, I even testified for 2 days in federal court for his case. And Margaret, she picked it right up. I mean, with the camera, I can still picture her lugging all that stuff around and getting it. She got into the courtroom too to get photo footage.
Yeah, I was going to ask you, Margaret, how, I've been practicing a long time, and while they do technically allow cameras in the courtroom in Illinois, judges I've never had any of our trials ever recorded. How did you do it? How did you go about? Because I saw that you had a bunch of clips. It sounds like you were able to get cameras in there for a lot of the hearings.
Yeah, we got access to a lot of the cases on an ongoing basis, and I had my previous film Any Given Day was also set in the Cook County courts in the mental health court, so I had an established relationship with the chief judge's office. They knew who I was, and actually that film became a training module for their professional development. And so it was interesting that when I was filming in the courtrooms with some of the judges, they actually were screening my last film as part of a professional development training. So they kind of knew who I was, and I think that helped a bit.
And I can't help but wonder, I always wonder about, the fact that some courts are streaming cases. I wonder if, that resonates with judges, like in terms of maybe lending more credence to something that they otherwise wouldn't if they're not being held accountable by having like an eye on them. You know what I'm saying? Like if it's just another day, in the courtroom and they're plowing through their call, and they're hearing all the motions on all the different cases. I just wonder if that transparency like helps. It seems to me that it has to.
I think it does. I think it depends on the judge. I think I've seen some judges that I know operate the same way, whether you have the camera on them or they don't. And that's a great judge. And then I've seen other judges change their tone, and, you get to know the judges because you're sitting, we may be filming one case, but we'd have to sit through all the other cases. So we'd have to come in the morning, set up, and maybe, we wouldn't even film until after lunch or something, but, we still have to be there early enough. So you kind of get to know how the judges, behave. Yeah.
And the thing that kind of really strikes me, and like the more I learn about these cases and Guevara and his cronies and his superiors, is that every one of these kids, now men, and I think one was a woman, right? That one of his victims,
Marilyn Malero, yeah.
That it's not just Guevara. I mean, he's the evil one, right? But like the entire system failed them. The entire system, all the way up the chain. Like, because I know how it works from the defense side of it, in terms of how a case is hatched. I mean, ultimately, that's a prosecutor making the call on a case saying, arrest him, charge him with X, Y, and Z. Like, that's not the cop that's making the call ultimately. And, so you've got to have just a ton of prosecutors that had these just whack cases landing on their desk. And at some point, and they have access to these witnesses that we don't. Like, for 20 plus years in my career, us trying to interview or sending our PI out to interview witnesses that are appearing in the state's discovery that they're tendering to us is near impossible, because they get that call. They'll say, "Oh, are you from the state? Are you the state?" And we'll say, "No, we work for the defendant." And they'll say, "Oh, hold on," and they'll go call the prosecutor. They'll say, "Look, the defense has their guy here," or the defense lawyers are here. And the prosecutor can't say, "Oh, you can't speak to them," but they inform them that you don't have to speak to them. And if they're in a case where they've done somebody dirty, there's a whole nother level of them not wanting to be exposed for the fraud that they're trying to put forth in terms of, I mean, that's like once it's like getting churned through the system, like having people have the courage to walk back statements that they've made, whether it was under a cop's thumb or not, is like a big deal, So it's like, because I'm like sitting there, I'm thinking like, oh my God, if like these cases landed like on Allison and I's desk, like would we have been able to sniff it out? And I don't know, because were they fudging the reports as well? Like it had to have been kind of super low key in terms of like, it's one thing to put your thumb on your CIs and get them to, or just kids that are in your beat, that are in your area, that all know you, that all fear you. It's one thing to put your thumb on them and say, all right, I'm like, look, I've got the leverage on you, sucker. You're gonna ID this dude, and that's it. We're not gonna have any more discussion about it. And that kid feels like he has to do it because they've got that incredible leverage of time. Like I'm gonna throw you in on some bullshit. I mean, like the cops have so much leverage over these kids in these neighborhoods that it becomes easy for them to be able to convince them that they have no other choice, but that this is what they're going to have to do. So it's just like, I mean, from what you guys have seen, if you've seen these cases work out and work through, like where do you think the biggest failures were in the system, or was it just kind of across the board?
I mean, I would just bring up the case of Roosevelt Miles, another case that Bill worked on, and that was a case involving former Lieutenant Anthony Wojcik, and also an Area 5 detective that Bill worked with. And we just filmed his certificate of innocence hearing about 3 weeks ago. And I couldn't believe how hard the state fought to say that Roosevelt is not innocent and didn't prove that he's innocent, when they're the ones that dropped the case and he ended up getting exonerated in the first place. But when you actually look at the case, the only evidence that put him away is a 14-year-old girl who said it wasn't him until Anthony Wojcik comes back 3 or 4 times to say, either you're going to say it's him or something is going to, you're going to have a case on you. And that was kind of the status quo of what was happening. But then to see how the prosecutor today is trying to keep him from getting a certificate of innocence, fought him for years. And then when you look at the judges, his original trial judge, he filed his post-conviction pro se back in 2000, and Judge Porter, his original trial judge, dismissed it, and it went to the appellate court. The appellate court said, well, actually, there's some validity to this. We're going to send it back to Judge Porter. And what happened is, for 18 years, the public defender's office and Judge Porter allowed this to be continued for 18 years until he served his entire sentence. And it's not until his attorney, which you saw in the clip as Jennifer Bonjean, took his case, that she was able to refile an amended post conviction petition, get his case in court. And it still took, she went on that case in 2017. He just got a certificate of innocence. So it still took 7 years for him to get his case heard and to be able to prove his innocence. And the state fought him every step of those 7 years. And when you look at how there's no physical evidence, he has an alibi. The witness signed an affidavit. She was ready to come testify the day of the post-conviction hearing, until the state said, you know what, never mind. We're not going to fight him anymore. But this is after how many years?
Man.
So it's impossible odds to overcome. But then when you actually look at what they had nothing. Nothing at all.
It's unbelievable. And it's like that concept of, and look, I'm a defense lawyer. So people, when I'm trying to tell them like the frustration of dealing with prosecutors who are so dug in on cases, for what reason?
Right.
Like what is your stake in it?
Is it because you've gone against a particular attorney?
It's not just to win, guys.
Yeah, and you're mad at her because you want to win, or I can't understand. I couldn't understand. And when you see his story unfold, and his is actually a separate short film that I'm making, separate from this, because it involves a different officer, but it just makes no sense,
It's
why they're fighting him on this.
I don't get it. And like with that Miles case, that's not the prosecutor who prosecuted him, obviously, right? It's a completely different person. It's like, why are you just so adamant about walking back a mistake that was made in order to just try to, whatever level you can mitigate the damage at this point, just do it. Like, why are they fighting? And it's not just here. It's like all over the country. And it's like when I talk about it, like like I said, I'm a defense attorney. So people are like, oh, Bob's biased. No, I'm not. Like, this is just such a prevalent issue that like all over the country, all over every county and every state that goes on. And it's like trying to undo what's been done is so hard to do. That like I just am so grateful that you, both of you, have decided to do what you're doing with your lives, because it's so important. Like but for you guys, but for Bill, like Guevara, like I mean these dudes might still be in prison. Like and it never goes like who's going, like I get so many letters like from both the lawyer side of it and the podcast side of it, from inmates that are just begging us to look at their cases, and they're taking hours to write these letters where they're just pouring their hearts out, they're pleading their case. And you know, just the time and the resources that it would take Alice and I to pick up these cases, and how do you choose which one? How do I decipher what's a good case to like dig into in terms of taking the time to get the resources, to get the files, to dig in, to start drafting the PCRAs, to go talk to all the witnesses, to do all the work that you have to do to undo this stuff. It's like, it's disheartening. So, you know, I'm so grateful to you both for the work that you do, because it's so important. And like Margaret, when this thing comes out, like I'm going to promote the hell out of it.
Thank you.
Just know that. And you have consider us to be a platform for anything that you've got going on, anything that you want to get out there. Because, you know, my replay crew's pretty strong. Like I'll get eyes on it. You know, and I'm here for you. So just know that. I think you're doing incredible work. I'm super, super grateful for you. And Bill, you know, you're just a hero, man. I don't know any other way to put it other than that, brother.
Well, it's all about finding the truth. That's what an investigator's supposed to do, Bob.
Yeah, but Bill, man, like you're a different breed, dude. I don't know what to tell you. It's like, I mean, I know there's a lot of good cops out there, but
yeah,
like being a good cop's one thing, to risk it all to do the right thing is a different breed, Bill. And you're that breed. So, you know, I'm a huge fan of your, you know, your work, and I'm a huge fan of you as a human being. Just because you've done things that most people don't have the balls to do, you know? So thank you for everything that you guys do. Sorry, we're at hour 2. I promise I was going to try to keep this at an hour. Margaret, thank you so much for joining us. Thank you for sharing your story with us. I cannot wait until it comes out. I can't wait. Like if you ever want to give me advanced screening, man, I'm here for it. I really did. Like I'm not exaggerating. Like I three different occasions I had like goosebumps just watching it. Obviously it's something that really resonates with me. Bill, thank you so much for once again getting up at the crack of dawn to join us. You guys are the best. Thank you so much. I appreciate you both.
Thanks, Bob.
Thanks, Bob. Thank you, Margaret.
Thank you, Bill.
All right, you guys, I'm going to throw the credits up. You guys are the best. Thanks for joining me. All right, y'all. I mean, I don't know. To me, it's just amazing people doing amazing things. And, you know, we're living in a much different world if people like Bill and Margaret don't exist. I'll tell you that. You know, documentary filmmakers that are like Margaret that, you know, care about real, genuine issues and advocate, and they're activists. And she's so much more than a filmmaker. I mean, she's able to tell her stories, but they're about incredibly important issues. So I'm just a huge fan of her and of that concept. And obviously Bill, I love, he's an amazing guy. So thank you, mods, for being here for the 3rd time today. You guys are truly the best. I couldn't do this without you. You guys are amazing, amazing. Thank you all out there that were hanging with us tonight. Make sure, please, like, share, subscribe. I want to get this story out to a huge amount of people. Like everyone needs to hear about this. We need to be able to spread the word about the reality of where we live and what goes on a daily basis. This is the reality. You know, not all prosecutors are heroes. Not all cops are heroes. I know that's what you think when you watch Discovery ID and Oxygen and closing cases and doing all that stuff. And granted, some of them are. But for everyone that is that, you have ones that aren't. And you need to counterbalance it. And we need to make everybody aware of the reality of what's going on out there. And it's stories like this that open your eyes to the reality of what's going on. So, all right, you guys are amazing. I will turn around. Thank you, Donna. I will turn around, see you guys tomorrow, 12:20-ish for Tellez. We'll get that thing wrapped up hopefully tomorrow. I love you guys. Take care. It's been real.